Hello, everyone, and welcome to Full-on, your Fulham-centric football podcast. I'm your host, Ash Woolford. Joining me today for our Man United review is Mozza. How you doing, mate?
Very good, thank you.
Drew, how you doing, buddy?
Fucked off, and I'm wearing black to match my mood.
And AJ, how you doing, mate?
Somewhere in between Drew and Jack.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, really, to have to review yesterday's game against United because we were woeful. Neither team offered anything, and it came down to one lucky deflection to win the game for United. Frustrating, and I probably summed up the whole game just there and then, but we'll try to break it down as much as we can. You know, there are some important things we have to talk about in this game because a lot happened yesterday around the game that wasn't necessarily to do with the game that I think we need to talk about because it was very frustrating for an awful lot of people I know that were at the game yesterday. So let's break down the game quickly before we do that. AJ, going into the game, mate, we saw the same squad that played against Leicester the week before. Not really a surprise considering how that result went.
No.
Were there any changes that you would have made considering players that had come back and available, or would you have just kept
Believe it or not, I probably would have started Andreas. I know there's obviously running commentary on very much our disdain for him amongst the podcast, but frankly, as we've discussed in the past, he likes to show up for these big important games. And as much as Manchester United are or were, 9 points below us or 7 points below us or whatever it was before the fixture last night, it was one of those games that would probably mean quite a lot for Andreas to play. So it felt a little bit silly having him off for someone who hasn't been performing in Emile Smith Rowe. Outside of that, I had no concerns with the rest of the lineup.
Yeah, well, this is usually where we break down, the action in the first half, but there was absolutely no action in the first half. Literally nothing happened in the first half. Both teams were beyond bad in yesterday's game. Man United didn't try to offer anything. We had lots of control of the ball. We seemed to do really well on the ball, but we couldn't get past, that final third because there was just no one trying to make that breaking run through. It was really, really poor. True, you were at the game yesterday. Going in at half time, I'm not over exaggerating by saying there's absolutely nothing to talk about, am I? There's just nothing to talk about that happened in that first half.
No, it was poor. I mean, what attacking threat there was, Fulham carried. Manchester United, they've beaten us twice this season, and yet they are still below us in the league, which basically sums up how bad they are. They were atrocious, which just makes the whole thing all the more galling. I think in your opening monologue, Ash, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think what was happening around the game and off the field was probably the bigger issue, and probably the greater or equally as concerning for Fulham fans. But yeah, it was a nothing game. You take away the speed of Robinson from the left back position. Where's our explosive players? I just don't see it. I just don't see it. It was same old. We didn't get enough people in the box. We didn't get anyone breaking beyond Jimenez. Yeah, I mean, it was just a non-event. It really was. Not much I can say about it, really, mate.
No, it's not really that surprising. Anyone who was at the game or watched the game will probably agree with us on that. Second half, there is only really two talking points for us to talk about. Sadly, they both sort of lead into each other. But the first one is, for me, one of the most cowardly challenges I've ever seen a defender make in my life. It's not the first time Martinez has made a tackle in the way he did yesterday this season, where he's basically bunny hop 2-footed tackle down on somebody. I know he gets away with it slightly because Adama's quite fast and he misses, and then because of Adama's quick feet, sort of Adama ends up landing on his feet. It doesn't sort of excuse the tackle that was made. It's a coward's challenge. It's not a challenge that anyone who can actually tackle makes. And for me, even though he didn't make any contact with Traore, the intent is there. That should still be a red card. Mozza, I don't know what your views on it are, mate. Like, do you have any views on the bunny hop tackle that was made, and what do you think should have been sort of the retrospective action taken on it?
Well, yeah, I agree with you, but the reason why it's not a red card is because it's Man United, isn't it? It's always the way, I feel, with these bigger teams. They don't get as severely punished as the likes of Fulham or other clubs like us. I know that's extremely cynical, but that's the way I see it. Yes, it should have been more harsh treatment. I don't really know what to say. I mean, there's so much. I say there's so much that happened, but of what did happen, I don't have a great deal to say, as we've established. But my thoughts are very much the same as yours, Ash. If anything, I'm just more concerned if by the start of the second half, was there enough wine and Prosecco to go around the stadium in the bar areas?
Yeah, I don't know, AJ or Drew, do either of you two have anything to add on the tackle? Like, because it's really frustrating for me to watch from an outsider's point of view. The fact it went completely unpunished. In fact, for anyone who was watching it on TV, it was almost like joked about a bit by the commentators, because they kept commenting on the Arsenal red card that from Saturday, that that's a completely different issue, that wasn't a red card, but it was for me. It's the worst type of tackle a defender can make, because it's proper cowardly. Do either of you two have anything to say on it before we move on?
It was laughed off, which I think was appalling. The commentary just sort of shrugged it off and laughed about it because he didn't make contact with Adama. I think Adama's got off very lucky in that situation, because if Martinez does make any contact, Adama could be looking at a lengthy timeout. It's a ridiculous attempts to make. I've seen people argue that he's jumped in an attempt to block the ball and he's throwing his body on the line and he's being fully committed to the cause. No, it's just reckless and idiotic. There's no need to be throwing yourself about like that. You can make a block, you can get in the way of the ball without like lunging at people, regardless of how tall or small you are. And I think it's just criminal that he got away with not even a caution. Granted, he didn't make any contact with Adama, so that might have seen him get away with just a yellow card, but nothing. It's just absurd.
Yeah, it's a bit frustrating. Drew, was it noticed in the ground? Did everyone notice how bad the tackle was as action was going on, or was it just sort of just more noticed that he didn't end up on the floor?
I got to be honest, it was moving quite quickly, so my view wasn't the best. I was very much relying on playbacks, but Martinez is that sort of player. I mean, Taylor, the referee, I mean, by and large, bearing in mind the disaster of Old Trafford a couple of seasons ago that he presided over, I don't think he was the worst. But at the end of the day, there but for the grace of God, because we could have lost Adama for quite a long time if he'd have made contact. But Martinez is that sort of player. I've really got not much to add than what's been said. I mean, if he'd have made contact, he'd have taken Adama out, and he'd have probably been looking at a red card. And then, ironically enough, he wouldn't have been on the field to score the goal. So, I mean, it's if buts, whats, ands, and maybes, isn't it? It wasn't. I think the intent was there. You're going in 2-footed like that. It's a red card offence. You make contact. Now, like's already been said, the fact that he didn't is probably the only thing that saved him.
Yeah, it's frustrating, and it's frustrating for me. It's just more the fact that it's clear intent there to 2-foot tackle or something like that. It's just shocking. And then obviously the second talking point of the half, and sort of the only real difference between the two teams in the game is his shot that's obviously heavily deflected, which sort of takes it up and over Leno, who I think does a decent job to at least still get a hand on the ball. I know he still sort of goes in after he gets hands, but I think he does a good job to get to it. It's just one of those shots that the deflection is the only reason why that's gone in. And it's frustrating that, yes, it was him who scored it, and it is the difference between two clubs. But let's be honest, and I think we have to be honest, we didn't really deserve anything from the game. We didn't really show any intent going forward. We didn't really show anything like we were the home team going in for it, and that may be down to atmosphere, and we'll talk about that in a minute.
I
It
disagree
just
with
felt
that.
really,
There's
really
no way.
bland.
There's no way we deserve to lose that.
No, I'm not saying we deserve to lose, but we didn't deserve to win it either. We didn't
No,
show
I
any
accept
intent
that,
in
but
front of the goal.
not to take anything from the game indicates that we shouldn't have had at least a point, and we should have.
No, I meant it in the sense that we didn't deserve to win more than anything else. Like we didn't deserve any victory from that game because we were quite poor. That's all I meant by that. We're going to end talking about the game like we always end up talking about the game. We're going to look at, man of the matches and some honourable mentions. It's kind of hard for us to do that because I want to move on and talk about the other moments of the game yesterday. Guys, let's just go around the room and get, everyone's man of the match and honourable mentions because I think there's some criticisms for some players. But Mozza, start with you, buddy. Looking at the game yesterday, who would be your man of the match, mate?
I'd say Lukic. Look, the deflection, it's unlucky. There's nothing anyone can do about that. I don't think it's fair to give that as a strike against him. Not that I've seen anyone suggest that at all, but for me, it'd be him. He just seemed to be doing better than most in terms of still trying to drive things forward and trying to maintain some sort of control in the midfield. Honourable mention, I would probably just have to say Calvin Bassey as well. From what I saw, probably like maybe the only sort of significant person in our back four. So it's a tough one. Those are my answers. I'll just keep it short and sweet like that.
Yeah. AJ, what about yourself, mate? What was your honourable mentions and any man of the match for yesterday's game?
Honourable mentions go to Calvin Bassey, Sanderberg, and Harry Wilson, not because of his performance, but because obviously he's now injured. So my mention to him is to wish him all the best in his recovery, more so than his performance on the pitch. But still wanted to put it out there. As for man of the match, it's Lukic. There's no question about it. He seemed, as outside of Bassey, he seemed like the only one that actually showed up for the game, frankly.
Yeah, it's a bit frustrating. How about yourself, Drew? Got any man of the match mentions for the game yesterday?
Lukic. I mean, at one point in the first half, I think I messaged you boys, and he basically took out 3 United players in one passage of play. I mean, we've said it before. But the fact that no one is crying over Polina now, and this is not in any way, shape, or form to detract anything that Berge has done, because I think Berge's, at 20 million. I mean, what in the current market? Yeah. I mean, that's a steal. I mean, my nephew, I go with. I mean, bless him. He's obviously a lot younger than me. He said he didn't realise Berge actually played against us a few seasons ago when Sheffield United beat us, and he scored. And he didn't realise who he was. I mean, he's been on my radar for quite a time. And ironically enough, before he came to us, he was linked to Man U. But he was good. But Lukic stand out. I'm not going to argue with the boys. Bassey, definitely an honourable mention. Nice touch by AJ. Really sad about Wilson. Fortunately, it seems to be only a twisted ankle, because I was worried because he got injured right near us on the in the Johnny Haynes stand, and he couldn't put any weight on the leg at all. And I was worried it was ligament damage, and I thought, I was just waiting for him to go. Yeah, basically, AJ. I thought if he's done ligaments in his ankle, I mean, we could be looking at him out until Easter. But I'm hoping it's not as bad. Just one other thing I want to say, and it ties into what AJ's already said about starting Pereira. It's an interesting point AJ makes, and I completely understand his rationale for making it. Realistically, after the Leicester game and ESR's goal and second half performance, ESR was always going to start. Mm-hmm. But it does worry me, having been at the game yesterday, that patience with ESR is going to start to run thin. I think he's obviously talented, but, and I will say this in Pereira's defence, okay, when he came on, okay, his first corner was typical Pereira, and quite frankly, it was a P-roller to the near post. And when he had a chance to run at the back four, he did a reverse pass out wide, which I still cannot understand, but he showed more energy and intent. And when him and Kearney did come on, and I appreciate some will say, well, it's typical Fulham, don't start playing until they're a goal down. There did seem to be a bit more urgency about the team. Without Robinson and Traore, who's not always guaranteed to start, we just seem to be so ponderous going forward. Our regular subscribers will have heard me say this before, and I'm really sorry if I sound like, I'm a broken record, but we desperately need some more speed going forward. We really do. We need to break with more intent. I am concerned, and Ash, and I don't want to preempt, I don't want to infringe upon our next topic. I am concerned about how committed the club is to actually fulfilling Silver's vision. I really am. And I know that I'm now starting to stray into where we're going next, so I'll leave it there. But I think that this squad is getting older and it definitely needs freshening up. But man of the match, Lukic, honourable mention, Bassi.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with any of you, actually. For me, Lukic and Bassi are standout performances by far. I'd struggled to sort of pick between them, so I'm sort of glad that you guys sort of have. I thought they were great. The one thing I do want to say is that I am slightly concerned about Anderson's performances. I thought he did a really good job in the first half. He kept Højlund really quiet, but the second half he seemed to go off the boil a little bit. And he's not quite. I don't know if he's maybe been pushed back from his injury a little bit too quickly or whatever, but he doesn't seem to be quite there at the moment. But that's a conversation we'll have when we preview the Newcastle game on Friday, because obviously it's a concern pick-wise for me. But we'll move on to that, guys. That's the review of the game. I want to move on to one more topic, because on Sunday we had a bit of a weird one. The game was moved to a 7 p.m. on the Sunday night to accommodate for Man United playing in Europe on Thursday. Because of that, we knew there was going to be some issues, re ticket sales and that sort of thing. The club have then obviously priced the game at absurd prices, which is an argument we're not going to get into too much here, because in the next couple of weeks, we will be doing this. We will be having a whole episode where we sort of break down, the club's pricing structure and why it's doing damage to the club. But I want to talk about the atmosphere at Craven Cottage yesterday. This is the main part of the conversation that I want to talk about. We're not going to go too much into pricing, because every single one of us can have a rant about pricing and what it's doing to fans and what it does to those of us who want to be at the games and those of us who don't go to games. The atmosphere at Craven Cottage yesterday, from the people I know who were there. Sadly, I couldn't go to the game yesterday because something came up, so I couldn't go. But for the people I know who did go, the atmosphere was really poor, mainly due to the fact that there were Man United fans absolutely everywhere. And the irony of that is the fact United fans were literally all up in arms because there was Rangers fans everywhere during the Europa League game on Thursday night. But Drew, you were at the game on Sunday. So I'm going to ask you this. Just how bad. I know we've had it bad with the big teams come down to the Cottage in the past with away fans in home areas. Just how bad was it?
It was. It's difficult. It was flat. It was flat. I will admit I did not want to be there last night. Football on a Sunday night, something just in my DNA says it's wrong. I mean, you got work the next day, obviously. Everyone knows midweek games are a real ball ache, but we go because it's part of the footballing calendar. But on a Sunday night, it wasn't great. That's the first point. The second point was there is a move at Fulham to target antisocial behaviour and discriminatory behaviour, and I totally endorse all of that. Yeah. But the club does have a duty of care to its own fans. And when you are allowing away fans in home sections, you are leaving yourself vulnerable to potentially bad consequences. Now, Fulham's not that sort of club, but could you imagine it at Millwall? You know? Could you imagine it at West Ham? Yeah. It was. I understand about the global pull of Manchester United. I have no problem with that at all. Okay, as a marketing machine, you know, they are one of the, and we've talked about this before. They are one of the world's most iconic sports franchises. You know, they transcend actual sports. We've named them before. You know, certain organisations, no matter who they are, you don't need to know anything about the sport. But you say to someone who are the New York Yankees, they'll be able to tell you they play baseball. You know, but United fans blatantly wearing United home kits in the Hammersmith end and being left there, it just blows my mind. And I'm not calling out the stewards. I'm not calling out the stewards because they've obviously been given a specific directive. But the thing that does worry me, and this goes back to what I was just saying before I said we weren't going to, I wasn't going to impinge upon this topic. A couple of weeks ago, Silva came out and said that he wanted a better atmosphere at Craven Cottage. Silva's built Fulham into an established mid-table Premier League team. Okay, he's clearly got ambitions to go higher than that. If you want to progress, everyone knows home field advantage has to be an advantage, not just in name. And the atmosphere at the Cottage was borderline pre-season where no one really cared. It was horrendous. It was absolutely horrendous. I've been to some Fulham United games where the atmosphere has been a lot better than excellent, but that wasn't at all. It was quite interesting near me in the Johnny Haynes stand. There was quite a few empty seats. The timing of the game caused obviously significant problems for supporters, especially I would imagine those with families. You know, bear in mind Sunday is generally a family day, and people had work the next day. But I just didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be there. I've got to be honest, Ash. If I could swap places with you and watched it on TV, and you'd have been at the Cottage, I'd have taken it. It was, and I do question whether, I publicly state that the ticketing policy and the admission of away fans into home areas, you've got to call into question the management of the club and Alistair Mackintosh. I think it's disgusting. I think it's disgusting. I really do. And we all know that, and we've discussed it before. And Ash, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves because I know we're going to be doing a whole pod on ticketing and admission at Fulham and not talking about the playing side. And I understand that, but it's the direction of travel. We've talked about it before. You know, they don't like season ticket holders because they don't like legacy fans. They want tourists who are going to go there and go into the club shop, and after spending maybe 100 quid on the ticket, splurge another 100, 200, 300 quid on Fulham regalia and paraphernalia. And if you do that, if you replace, remember what the word fan, is derived from the word fanatical. Yeah, they don't want fans; they want spectators. And that is going to change the makeup of the Cottage, the atmosphere of the Cottage, and it is going to undermine home field advantage. So I do wonder how this sits with Silva's request for a more dynamic atmosphere at Craven Cottage. I really do. We get criticised a lot for being quiet anyway. We've all been there on electric nights at the Cottage, and when the Cottage is on fire, it is pretty special under the lights by the river. But that was the weirdest, most awful, flat atmosphere I've been in, and I just didn't want to be there. It made me not want to be there, irrespective of the football. It just made me not want to be there. Sorry, mate, I've gone on far too long.
No, that's fine. I'll be open and honest. I had the smallest inconvenience come up on Sunday, and I used it as an excuse not to go to the game because I didn't want to be there. Because I didn't want to be sat there with any United fan anywhere around me. I didn't want to be sat there watching United fans happily sit in the home end because it frustrates the hell out of me whenever it happens. You know, there's two sets of clubs. There's two clubs, especially in Man United and Liverpool, that whenever we play them, right, they always have away fans in the home area anyway. Even if the club don't go out of their way to price the game and structure the game in the way they did it, right? Yesterday, just watching it on TV, and I'm going to ask AJ about this in a minute because he's the one who pointed out to us when watching the pre-game. It was shocking how open and happy United fans were to show that they were sat in the home end. You know, AJ, let's talk about that quickly because obviously you pointed out to us when watching the pre-game on TV just how infuriating is it to see people so happily sat in the home end wearing away kits.
Yeah, I mean,
not giving a damn.
Ignore the bollocks that we get from opposing fan bases about a neutral stand, which I don't even think is a thing anymore. It was pre the Riverside reconstruction. But let's ignore the neutral stand for a second. We were a neutral fucking stadium yesterday, and it was a joke. It was an utter shambles. It was like a charity match, and we were just getting as many spectators as possible and fielding a bunch of celebrities to play football for 90 minutes. The performance on the pitch was exactly that as well. You may as well have had rolling subs because it was just pathetic. And I think it showed from both sides. Fair credit to the United fans who were vocal throughout the entirety of the game because that's all you could bloody hear. It's just outstanding that the club have stooped to these levels of ticket sales. It's like getting to the point where we just go beyond general sale and are just like, yeah, anyone that wants the tickets can have them for 160 quid. Like there's no proof of concept, no proof of identity. Just yeah, anyone wants them, take them. I bet they were still bought and touted outside the front of the stadium. I don't know, Drew, you might be able to attest to that, whether or not there was many touts or not.
They were out.
Typical. Well, I used to love going to Craven Cottage because there was none of that crap. Like there was always, when I went to away games, there'd be touts, or when we went to Wembley, there were touts everywhere. But I used to love going to Craven Cottage because that walk up to the stadium through various streets of houses was just a bunch of people in white shirts all walking together and having a chat. There was never any stress or any drama or any fan combatants or anything like that. And now it just seems like there's a complete disconnect and that there isn't any fans going to these games anymore. It is literally just a bunch of random people, which is sad to see because we did as well as we did under Roy Hodgson by making Craven Cottage a fortress that it was. And you won't get, I don't think we'll see atmospheres like we did in Europe in 2010 at Craven Cottage ever again. I think even if we somehow manage to recover the rest of this season and make it into Europe next year, you won't see any European atmosphere from Craven Cottage, at least not in the home games. The away games, sure, however many we're allowed to take, you'll see the most dedicated Fulham fans think there probably is, and it'd still probably cost a quarter of what it would cost for a match ticket at Craven Cottage to go on these European journeys. It's just really sad to see the state of affairs of the club and the fact that Ali Mackintosh's response to being asked for a better atmosphere is, oh yeah, we've installed a couple of more speakers and we'll start playing louder music before kickoff. Yeah, that worked wonders for this United game. I can't remember what song it was we started playing, but it had the United fans chanting about Robin van Persie because it happened to be one of their songs. So not only have we screwed that up, we've also given them a playlist. You
Yeah,
can't
what
you can't
infuriates
make
me,
these things up.
what
Sorry, I
infuriates me
rambled.
most, no, it's what infuriates. It's a very emotive subject for a lot of Fulham fans, right? What annoys me the most about this whole thing is the person who was in charge of the football club when we were in Europe was Alistair Mackintosh. So he
Yeah.
was in charge at the time when we were going through that period where it was evident just how important we were as a fan base to the emotive and the atmosphere and the backing of the team and how it pushed the team on to get to a Europa League final. To him then to be the exact same person who is skirting around FST meetings, skirting around ever answering a question about football fans, disrespecting Fulham fans at almost every turn he can, mismarketing us as all being rich people that turn left on airplanes, all this sort of stuff is beyond frustrating. I last Friday put together a picture that I posted on my Twitter, and then I posted it on ours, which I probably shouldn't have done, but I did because I've had enough. It's got to the point now where I've simply had enough of Alistair Mackintosh and him being involved at Fulham Football Club because all he does is put a wedge between us and the thing that we all love the most, which is the football club. He's gone against absolutely everything that Marco Silva has said. Marco Silva's physically come out in the media and said, I want a better atmosphere. And all Alistair Mackintosh has done is gone, right, this is everything I can do to stop there being an atmosphere. Mozza, I know you're not necessarily the most over the top fan when it comes to things that me have said. You'll probably have quite a level headed view on this if I ask you. What is your view
Yeah.
on Alistair Mackintosh, or not necessarily if you've got a personal view on him, but what he is actually doing to the football club, what he's doing to the fan base? What do you see looking at
it? you say that, Ash, but I think I come from a place where I do love football, obviously. Part of this podcast, I've supported Fulham for 27, 28 years. What if it wasn't? So my point is, I come from a very fanatic place as opposed to having a technical football head on me about the game, and that is where my heart is. That's who I'm as a person. I wear my heart on my sleeve. If it wasn't any more cut and dry than it already was about how us fans, the fanatics, the legacy fans, feel about Alistair Mackintosh, it said it all, seeing him propped up in the actual Craven Cottage, hobnobbing, sat next to Gianni Infantino last night.
Oh.
Seeing that on my screen, and it didn't surprise me, and it didn't shock me, but that says it all. What is he doing to the club? Well, I can't add anything that the three of you haven't already said already. But look, I wasn't at the game last night. I share a season ticket with my family. It wasn't my turn to go last night. I probably could have gone if I thought hard enough and said, no, I really want to go and see us play United. But for the same reasons you said, Ash, it's I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be there because I knew that was going to be the atmosphere. Now, my point about me saying where I've got a shared season ticket, obviously I don't get to go to every game, but there are regulars who sit around me and they've sat there for years. And I get eyeballed when I walk to my seat because they're like, who's this stranger? They all shake hands. They've known each other for years. I'm yet to get that pally with them and au fait and all that, but maybe one day I'll get there. But I try and keep myself to myself. But, I can feel the eyes on me.
Yeah.
But I still stand up because I'm quite near the back of the hammy end with the choir. You're almost forced to stand, which I love. It's like the good old days. But I make a point of singing the songs. I love that. But then for me, that's almost like me sort of proving that I am a proper fan. I do know all the songs. I'll join in, and I love that. That's my support. But I still feel looks, and I don't understand how other fans can feel comfortable going into stadiums. I'm coming to the end of my ramble. I've been in other stadiums, right, before with the home fans. So the first one that comes to mind, horrible to say, is Stamford Bridge, but that was against my will when I was a child. Yes, you want to see your team play the top the top clubs, I don't want to sit in a stand of Chelsea fans, whether we win or lose, because I can't be myself. I can't actually support my club and I can't cheer. It's not the same. I've had other opportunities since where people have gone, it doesn't even have to be a top side. I've had people go, do you want to go to Loftus Road and watch QPR? You know, yeah, I've been there enough in my time when we ground shed with them. But no, I don't want to sit with QPR fans. And, you know, whenever there is a time where we next get to play them, I hope I'm making sense with what I'm saying here, because I'm dumbfounded. Whether these fans are tourist fans or not, why would you want to go and sit in a stand paying top whack for these tickets, surrounded by, well, hopefully surrounded by home fans? I remember the days where if anyone was suspected to be an away supporter, they would get chucked out. Yeah, they might get snitched on, but the stewards would get pulled over and they would be thrown out the ground and there would be a black mark against their name. Long gone are those days. It just, I'm beyond words saying anything more than that. I hope I've made sense and I've articulated myself well. Probably not at the chances.
Yeah,
but
fine.
Yeah, no, it's well said. It's exactly a point. It's interesting you mentioned that last night at the game, you know, one of the world's most corrupt football managers who's only interested in money and not their fans was sort of sat in the cottage next to Giovanni Infantino, because it's just it's absolutely
Well done.
magic. Like I will talk
You didn't
more
mean
about
corrupt,
Alistair
did you,
Mackintosh. I didn't mean corrupt. No, I know. I meant another word that began with C. But I didn't want to say that either. Look, I've made my point and my personal position on Alistair Mackintosh available to anyone who wants to know it. I do not like the man because he disrespects us as a fan base like no other CEO of any football club has ever done before in their lifetime. The fact he does a thing that has meant that other football clubs try to justify the bad things they do to their fans infuriates me even more. You know, we apologize to the guys on the Man United podcast about the fact that their owners are using our ticket prices justification for rising their ticket prices, but the prices they're rising their ticket prices to are still only a third of what we charge for the game on Sunday. They know what they're doing. They know exactly what they were doing when they priced the tickets at the amount they did. And we'll talk about this in the episode that we're going to do in a couple of weeks. They pushed out loyal fans and they didn't care who bought the tickets to the game on Sunday. They knew the atmosphere they were creating. They didn't care about the atmosphere that they were creating. The fact that we have all said it before, none of us are putting anything on any steward that worked at Fulham last night in that game, because there's absolutely nothing you could have done about the sheer amount of Man United fans that were in home ends or in the games whatsoever. But the club knew, whoever made the decision from ticketing knew before the game had even started filling up, when they were selling tickets, exactly the atmosphere they were creating for us. Well, I didn't go for this exact reason, but you know, for everyone to sit into. If you're a Fulham fan, you were at the game last night, I want to hear, comment on this video, send us an email, send us a DM on Twitter or on Blue Sky, whatever. Before we put our episode together in a couple of weeks, where we're going to dive into ticketing prices and atmosphere, and Alistair Mackintosh especially, because we all have more to say about him, and I know more do. I want to hear everyone's stories about, you know, how ticket prices, how the FST being completely overridden and basically disrespected by him is affecting you, because we want to put it together and have something that collates so we can all sit there and say, you know what, we can sum up exactly what is happening at the football club, because it's not a happy sight at the moment. What happened at the game last night, game aside, was not a happy sight to see. It's almost shocking and embarrassing. I would rather go back to the days where we were playing in front of 4,000 people, losing in the third division, but no, every single person standing around me loves the football club that we're watching just as much as I do, than have, you know, 12,000 happy clappers and tourists and away fans sat in the home ends, because it means that the club have made a few extra bunts, because it's not good and it's frustrating and it's anger inducing. And as I say, a loyal season ticket holder who's been going to Fulham for 35 years, opted not to go to a Fulham Man United game last night at the smallest inconvenience, because I didn't want to be sat around it. And if that doesn't say anything from my point of view more than I can do, I don't know what else I can say. Guys, thank you very much for joining me for this match review. I know we sort of started talking a bit about, the problems around the club. We will obviously review that and come up and talk about it in a couple of weeks. Please do get in contact with the show. As I say, if you've got any sort of stories about how anything's affecting you, subscribe and like to the show. Comment on the show with any of your stories about what Alistair Mackintosh is doing or what the club are doing that are sort of affecting you personally, because we do want to be able to share as many of those stories as we can. Other than that, we'll see you all on Friday as we preview the Newcastle game. Good luck to everyone who's going to that, but we'll talk about that in the preview. Other than that, come on, you whites, and see you all soon.